Welcome back to the 21 Boom meditation guided meditation series. I'm Coach Feeney. I will be your guide this evening. Um, so once again, just sit however is comfortable for you and allow your eyes to gently close. And then rest with your mind wide open, listening to sounds, noticing sensations in the body, feeling the breath come and go either at the nose or at the abdomen or chest. Just let your awareness be the space in which all of these things appear. It is, in fact, already the space in which all things simply appear. If you notice any mood or coloring to your attention, if you feel sleepy or restless, anxious, peaceful, bored, any feeling tone, just notice that too. Where do you feel it? Feel it as a pattern of energy. Notice that consciousness is prior to it. This too is just appearing in consciousness. Sleeplessness itself, feeling that you're about to fall asleep, is also a sensation appearing in consciousness. And that which is aware of restlessness or sleepiness is not itself restless or sleepy. Consciousness doesn't actually take the shape of what it knows. See if you can feel that. Become aware of the sensations of your face and your head. And rather than feel that consciousness is in your head or behind your face, notice that it's in fact the other way around. The sensations of having a face or head are appearing in the open space of consciousness. They're appearing in the same place that sounds are appearing in thoughts. The sensation of having a face or a head or a body is appearing in the same place where you're hearing the sound of my voice. There's only one place to notice anything, and that's in consciousness. And simply rest as that space. If you notice that you've been lost in thought, entirely forgotten about the practice of meditation, there's no need to judge that moment. That again is just another moment being lost in thought. Just start again. Watch what happens to the thought itself and rest as the space in which it disappeared. Observe whatever comes next, sounds, sensations, another thought. Eventually, thoughts themselves can become objects of meditation. There are times when the practice becomes stable enough that the arising of the thought is no longer synonymous with losing the thread of mindfulness. There are times when it feels like there's no possibility of losing that thread. There's nothing to be distracted by. Again, there's only one space in which everything appears. What could be distracted from what? Focus as precisely on the breath as you can, and you might add a mental note in your mind, either the word in and out, or you can count each breath. Keeping the voice in your mind very soft. It's just a way of recommitting your attention to the breath at each moment, beginning and end. And rather than trying to get closer to the breath with your attention, just notice that it appears all on its own in the space of consciousness. There really is no getting closer, and there's no place from which you could get closer. Everything is just appearing as it is. Sensations, sounds, thoughts. In the moment you notice you've been lost in thought and have entirely forgotten the purpose of sitting here, just notice the thought itself unraveling and disappearing without judgment and begin again. As you feel the breath come and go, become aware of all the other sensations that are appearing in and as your body. There's really a cloud of sensation, tingling, pressure, temperature. In the last minute of this session, just begin again. See if you can pay really precise attention to whatever's appearing. See if you can make your mind as big as possible. Don't focus on anything. Don't restrict your attention to anything. Just let your mind be wide open like the sky. Well, as you can tell, the practice keeps developing. I keep adding new elements, and we're now getting into territory in these sessions where the meditation's open to the full field of experience. Sounds, sensations, moods, thoughts, everything in principle is a fit object of meditation, and there's nothing which is by its very nature a distraction here. I hope it's clear that you're not trying to prevent thoughts or moods arising. You just want to pay close attention to whatever appears. The full field of conscious awareness is the context of mindfulness. And I'll be adding exercises that interrogate various parts of it and that put into question certain features of our experience that seem worth taking a closer look at. But the content on this side can become evergreen, and you can use it again and again. There is one sense of self that is confusing and that produces a tremendous amount of suffering for us. And happily, this sense of self can be dispelled through meditation. It can be discovered to be illusory through meditation. And this self is the feeling in each moment that we are subjects internal to our bodies, the feeling of being inside our heads. It's almost as though we feel as though we are passengers in our bodies. And it's this feeling that is also referred to as the ego. If you're like most people, what you are calling I is this feeling of being the internal subject of your experience. I does not refer merely to the body, and it certainly doesn't refer to the totality of experience. I appears to be the center of experience. It's that which is appropriating experience. This feeling that we call I is itself a product of thought. Having an ego is what it feels like to be thinking without knowing that you are thinking. It's the feeling of being identified with thought. Imagine that you run into someone you know and like a lot, and when they see you, rather than smile as they usually would, they look very unhappy. And the first words out of their mouth is, "I can't believe that you would do that." Now, assuming you have no idea what they're talking about, your first thought is, what did I do? Now, imagine your friend looks at you with real mistrust and says, "Seriously?" And all you can think in that moment is, "Well, what did I do? What are you talking about?" Now, these are just thoughts, and yet they completely subsume us and subsume you in that moment. They seem to be what you are in each moment they're arising. You have no perspective on them. There's no space around them. Your consciousness has almost been entirely reduced to a string of sentences into the feeling of urgency that created them, in which they create in turn. And how could you actually be a thought? How could consciousness be trimmed down to a sentence? Whatever their content, thoughts vanish almost the instant they appear. They're like sounds or sensations in the body. How could this, however urgent, define consciousness at all? Consciousness is the prior condition to its arising. It's the state of being identified, of there being no space, no perspective, where each thought is just you. What did I do? Thoughts are arising each moment, and you don't even know that you're thinking. It's like dreaming when you're asleep, and you have no idea that you are dreaming. That experience of full capture by the content of consciousness is the ego. It is the self that is the target of deconstruction by the practice of meditation. And the self is a burden, even when things seem to be going well. Consider the feeling of pride. Let's say you've just done something great and you've been praised for it in high places. How good does that feel? You know the feeling. Some part of your mind is lapping it up with its little cat's tongue. But this is the same part of you that is always poised to be miserable. This is the part of you that is always comparing yourself to other people. This is the part of you, even when it's riding along at full gallop, can be unhorsed by a single sentence or glance. The rewards of the ego are not good enough, and we are just talking about patterns of thought, one thought following the next, and the selflessness that can be realized through meditation is not a deep feature of consciousness. It's right on the surface. And yet people can meditate for years without realizing it. And for most people, experiencing the absence of self requires considerable training. That's what we're doing here. It is possible to notice that consciousness, that in which is aware of your experience, does not feel like a self. It does not feel like I. Rather, whatever feels like I is itself another appearance in consciousness. Whatever you can feel is being known by this prior condition, which we're calling consciousness or awareness. Now, how can we know that the conventional sense of self is an illusion? Well, the most compelling way is to get yourself into a position to really look for it, and then find it absent. And that's the point of meditation. When you really look for this thing that feels like I, it vanishes. And this is compelling in the same way that the disappearance of an illusion is compelling. You thought something was there, but upon closer inspection, you can see that it isn't. In this case, you can feel and know it isn't. There's a general intellectual and epistemic principle at work here. Whatever is there whenever you are paying the closest attention stands a better chance of being real than what seems to be there when you're not paying attention. What doesn't survive scrutiny cannot be real. Now, as you get further in the practice of meditation, you will discover that there is no thinker apart from your thoughts. There's no one producing these thoughts, and there's no one receiving them. There's just consciousness and its contents as a matter of experience. There's no one who's choosing the next thing you do. Thoughts, intentions, and choice just arise and become effective or not based on prior causes and conditions. The feeling that you are in the driver's seat, able to pick and choose among thoughts, is itself a thought that has gone unrecognized. This feeling of being a self that can pick and choose is what it feels like to be thinking without knowing that you're thinking. So thank you for the efforts that you're making here, for whoever's following along with these. I wish you the best of luck at integrating this kind of attention into the rest of your day.